Okay, so this is the agenda for the next half an hour. So I'm going to run through some definitions of sustainability and how that interacts with ESG, because actually obviously very intertwined, but there is a bit of a difference in how these words form and what we do with them. We look at a model, we look at the Procurement Act, benefits, challenges, and we will also focus quite generically on procurement systems and how they will help you achieve your sustainability goals, and a few final reflections. So, oh God. Okay, so what is sustainability in ESG? So a few definitions here. So sustainability is a broad, holistic concept, and it's all about ensuring that as businesses that we meet the needs currently of our business, but also ensure we don't adversely impact the need of future generations. And so that's sustainability in a business is about being there for long term. Touchstone's been here over 40 years. So traditionally, when we think about sustain being as a business, it was all about the economic side of it. But more and more, especially as we'll see in the next half an hour and touched on a lot today, how it's not just about that. We're looking at more quality rather than cost. We're looking at more efficiencies. We're looking at more how we can help the environment and how society, environment and the economy all fit together. And a key part of this is the role within procurement with sustainability is the role of supply chains. So with endurance, procurement terms, we can look at how we can reduce waste, minimise our carbon footprint, have renewable resources, ethical sourcing and also trading as well. So procurement is important in sustainability as a whole, and it's a wide, broad concept. But what we have as part of this is ESG. So Pete's already touched on that. Smart DC also have, Stuart. So environmental, social and governance. And this is about being able to measure a company's performance against environmental, social and governance and then make decisions as a result. So it's not just stakeholders, not just board members, but it's become very key in ensuring that we can look at a business and a company, an organisation, be able to how they actually perform against key metrics. And obviously when we have metrics, we have benchmarks. So benchmarks are so important in seeing how we're doing industry-wide, how we're doing sector-wide, and that's how we look at ESG is a small part, but a very important part of sustainability as a big whole. Sustainability in ESG should be embedded in organisations. So why is this and why is it so important? Well, the world is heating up. There are lots of natural minerals, food and water that are becoming scarce. There's wildfires, droughts, floods, and we do need to protect our planet. It's becoming more important, not just as individuals, but as businesses as well. Okay. So moving on to the SIP Sustainability ESG model. And the key part, and right at the centre of any effective sustainability strategy and ambition is governance. And to have sound governance, we need a sustainability culture. That needs to be linked to enhanced transparency, good ethical practice, and then with a robust risk management system. And I'll keep coming back to the word risk, because a lot of this is about risk management and building resilience for our business within the economy, society and environment working. By having this in the middle, it enables us to have targets and initiatives to meet environmental, social and economic concerns. This is a model that shows these are all intertwined, and this is obviously some SIPs, but there's some key things at the heart. In order to get to where we need to, there's important things within an organisation and information, transparency, that they all fit together to ensure we can make sure we meet our sustainability agenda. Okay, so public sector procurement, just going to speak about Procurement Act 2023. So this is due for release now, or coming to legislation, was passed in 2023. It affects public sector procurement and it's due to commence end of February. It was due to commence last week. And this has become really key for any public sector organisations, any organisations that receive government funding. And it's so important, it's been made so important within the legislation about social value and sustainability. And the reason for that is because where in the past, going out to tender over a certain amount, we focused on just that, the meat factor there. So most economically advantageous tender. We all looked at tenders before and we've got a split between quality and cost, might be 80-20, 70-30, 60-40. But often the social value and the quality side and the sustainability has been left because it's just done on price. And there's more and more pressure, not just from our customers, from our suppliers, but regulations as well, and compliance, that we, not just in public sector, but all sectors, that we start adhering to compliance, sustainability, when we're doing all of our procurement work. So there's your point here, efficiency and cost versus social value and quality. And this bit at the end has been left out in the past just to focus on efficiency and cost. The legislation also states that there has to really be tools in order to capture, assess and report on key supplier data. So this is throughout the whole procurement cycle. So it's supply onboarding, supply engagement, supply performance reviews, when we go out to tender and the evaluations of those tenders, and also contracts and KPIs on that contracts. All need to start capturing that key supplier data to managing the sustainability aspect. So, some key benefits of sustainable procurement. Environmental, obviously it's huge. It's a key part of this. Reducing pollution and carbon emissions. So, by selecting suppliers where we have local sourcing rather than global sourcing, so there's a term, I'm sure you're aware in procurement, act local, think global. So act local, think global. So you're using local suppliers, but you're doing that across your global supply chain. And also to reduce pollution, carbon emissions, about more efficient transportation methods. And rather than ensuring that will reduce carbon emissions. Energy efficiency. It's about choosing suppliers that in their energy consumption and during their production that they use LED lighting and clean energy. Reducing waste. So choosing suppliers that have recycling, reuse and repair, because this will divert waste away from landfills, which will often use even more energy. Another key benefit is improving the brand and your brand image and corporate reputation of your business. So sustainability is so important now that existing customers will look at, are you sustainable? That will retain your existing customer base. It will also, if you do have good sustainability practices, it's also more likely that you'll get new customers and as a result increasing your revenues and your margins. So there's a study from the World Economic Forum that says if you have good sustainability practices, you'll have a 15 to 30% increase in your brand value. Revenue growth. So by being innovative, having recycling programs and using eco-friendly products, or creating eco-friendly products, can also massively improve your revenue growth. So being innovative will attract new suppliers, new customers. And again, the World Economic Forum has said that 5 to 20% increase in revenue growth if you do this properly. Cost reduction. So we know there's going to be investment in sustainable practices, procurement tools, techniques in order to do this, but you can reduce your costs. So you reduce your overall cost because you're not just looking at initial purchase price, you're looking at total cost of ownership. So when you're doing your tenders, you're looking at what is the maintenance cost, what's the cost of disposal, and bringing those factors into it. So despite that initial investment, it will pay off. And focusing on improving your processes and not over specifying what you want also can lead to cost reduction. There's a McKinsey study that stated that, again, those that are following these transparent and really good sustainability practices will have a 5 to 10% reduction in costs. And these are the key players that are seeing that. It strengthens customer and supplier relationships. So not just our customers downstream, but also our supplier relationships upstream. And that's with being able to work with local communities and creating local jobs and working locally, think globally. And it positively impacts employee morale because employees are more and more concerned about the environment, sustainability, and it does retain employees, and it's becoming much more important in people staying in your business. And back to risk mitigation and future proofing. So a lot of this does come down to risk management. And if you have these structures in place, then you're more likely to have a more resilient business if you are managing your risks, so that when you have new regulations, when you have customers, when you have suppliers that are demanding these things or pointing in that direction, it will ensure your business will thrive. Challenges in implementing sustainable procurement. So, of course, there is going to be some pushback at times. Lack of internal knowledge about sustainability. So this is not just within your procurement department, but it's all departments within your business, your organisation. It could be because there's no knowledge, the resources, the technical know-how, the technical systems. Now, the easy way to deal with that is education and training. Obviously, there's going to be a cost impact, but it is about, from the top level, it has to be taken from the top, that employees know about what is sustainability, how is it going to help the business, how does it impact us with what we buy, what we sell. Little support or pushback from suppliers. So suppliers might not understand what sustainability is. We'll work with small, medium, large suppliers. May not understand, may not have the tools or techniques to implement it. They may just think, oh, this is something that's going away, but it's not going to go away. And the best way to overcome that pushback to suppliers is to work with them. So by working with suppliers, show them the training tools and techniques you're using to achieve sustainability so that they can follow them as well. And we'll talk a bit more about supplier calibration, but it's working with the suppliers rather than dumping it on them. They may not know how to get the sustainability data that you require. So work with them to explain how you get that data. Because if you're sending out questionnaires to suppliers with, I want that, that and that, and a lot of them will say, well, I don't know how to get that information. So work with them to ensure we can overcome that problem. Higher costs. Yeah, there will be a higher cost implementing sustainable procurement procedures, sustainable procurement systems. But it's going to happen. There's more and more regulations coming out. There's more and more demand from board level people, from customers and suppliers. And it is an investment in the future. Difficulty accessing technology. That's something I'll focus on in the next slide. Supply chain traceability. Supply chain traceability is all about information exchange, security, and that visibility and how we get that information. And a few ways we can do that. KYS, as Pete mentioned earlier, know your supplier. Find out how to get that information. Collaborating with your suppliers, working with them, and also technology as well, which the next slide will show you how procurement systems can help us. So there should be P2P up here. So purchase to pay and source to contract. As I said, it's completely software agnostic. So one way you can do this is with P2P systems, very simple, order consolidation. Order consolidation, less deliveries, less carbon emissions. And that's so simple. Lots of procurement systems where you can have a requisition. We have the buyer role. The buyer role does the consolidation of the requisitions into orders. It's not a difficult thing to do. Even if you start at the order stage, there are ways in which you don't have to. You can have 4 orders to one supplier rather than having 20 orders to a supplier. Invoice automation. So the move from all paper-based invoices to digital invoices. And we know there's lots of things out here with OCR, invoice capture that can do that. And more businesses are moving towards that way, but some often still have the paper-based going around, and that's not good for the environment, quite obviously. And there should be another point above this, which is about when you're raising these requisitions purchase orders, having eco-friendly products, having a price list of eco-friendly products. That's just a simple way, and you can make a transaction with different, have the prices and make sure it's known that it's an eco-friendly product. And then source to contract. So source to contract, obviously the procurement cycle, supply management, sourcing, contract management. So with regards to supply management, so onboarding and selecting new suppliers. We can ensure we onboard and select new suppliers that the questionnaire we send them, that it's asking for eco labels, it's asking for ISO certificates, it's asking for any sort of compliance with sustainability and how they're actually meeting that. So that's one way in which we can performance reviews and questionnaires. So ongoing improvements, capturing that key sustainability data. We need to ensure that we know that supplier and the supplier's supplier, so further down the supply chain and value chain, from first, second to nth tier supplier, that they are performing the sustainability practices. Sourcing, incorporating sustainability to sourcing process. So when we're going out to tender, that we have these specific questionnaires and areas about sustainability to capture that information. Life cycle costing. So not just looking at that purchase price, looking at total cost of ownership and maintenance costs, disposal costs, reuse. That has a huge impact on when we purchase, because often we are just going for that initial cost. We need to look at that, how long we're going to have that product, how long we're going to have that service for. Contract management. So we can measure sustainability here. Contract KPIs. Brilliant. We've got contract tools, contract repository, we can have contract KPIs. But the key thing with contract KPIs is engage with your supplier to ensure they understand and accept that as a KPI. Because if they don't accept that as a KPI, there's no point. Because the reason for doing these KPIs with your suppliers is to ensure they're accountable. So if they're accountable and they're saying, yeah, I agree that KPI, will follow those through, then they're accountable for achieving those KPIs. If you're just chucking KPIs at suppliers, it's not going to be good for anyone. Contract views, similar to supply views, but specific to that particular contract. Procurement system with contract management, we have contract registers, a central repository of compliance documentation. So this is your ISO 14001, 50001, environmental management systems, and the other one that I can't remember. So it's about capturing that compliance documentation, within your contract repository, especially if you're getting audits in these type of things. And I think that will come more and more into this. You need to have this documentation rather than it being on files on people's hard drives. reporting and dashboards. So ensuring you've got supplier performance reports that have sustainability as a metric, and also highlighting where they're not being compliant. And dashboards as well, where you can have links to third-party software that can show you all your ESG information. I'm sure there's some people in here that know a lot more about that than me, but dashboards to show where they're performing with pollution standards and carbon emissions. Oh, there we are. There's 2 bits. Final reflection. So, not one size fits all. Not one size fits all because businesses, organisations have different reasons why specific reasons why from the list have shown they would have sustainability. But we can see it's so important because it gives you real benefits. You know, as I said, the McKinsey study showing that cost reduction of 5 to 10% just by having effective sustainable procedures. Now, the key players are really making a benefit here because it's not going to go away. And I think the sooner that people grasp this and you'll use tools and techniques and software and educate their employees and suppliers to do it, more people have real benefits. Again, back to risk. Risk is so important here. It's going to enable businesses to have that resilience. There's going to be more legislation in the future. There's more regulations. There's going to be more pressure on people to ensure we abide by sustainability and ESG. And as Pete said and Stuart said, it's becoming such a big factor in the way we do things. When we have tenders now, there's lots and lots. I'm looking at the back at Sarah and Louise. There's lots of questions now on sustainability and how we TSM abide by sustainability and what we do. So sustainability and ESG leadership begins at home, but it can't stay there. So it doesn't just operate within the 4 X walls of our business. You know, it goes right down our supply chain, different supply tiers, first tier, second tier, third tier. So we really need to keep an eye not just on our suppliers, but our suppliers and see how their impacts sustainability. Because then that comes back to the credibility of business and your brand. Because if you find out, and you're a big business, that your second tier supplier is got unfair labour practices, then that affects the first tier and also could come back to you. So it goes right down your value chain, right down your supply chain, not just your immediate supplier. Winning but not ready. So we know there's a need to embrace change. The problem is with change and people is, you know, people don't like change as it is now, but people don't like change in the present, but in the future it makes it much harder as well. So, any questions?